Well, Craig, welcome to OnPolitics. You know, we haven't had a chance to talk about Reince Priebus's exit from the White House last week, and I guess it wasn't really unexpected given what had been going on the last couple of weeks. But what's your take on his time there?
Well, it did certainly feel like it was just a matter of time. You know, he had several things going against him. One, he wasn't, you know, his relationship to Trump was always kind of tenuous. I mean, he came in from the RNC, sort of representing the Republican establishment. He had some shaky moments with Trump on the campaign trail, which Trump never forgot, including criticizing him pretty strongly over the Access Hollywood tapes. And at the same time, you know, he was regarded, I think, inaccurately as this Washington insider who brought these vast reservoirs of experience and connections and historical knowledge to the job of White House Chief of Staff. He really was not a Washington insider. He was a party guy who rose up most of that time in Wisconsin through the party apparatus, was a lawyer who practiced in Milwaukee. He had only been in Washington for about 5 or 6 years and had no real government experience. So even though it was kind of, I think it was a mark against him in a sense that he was perceived as a member of the Washington establishment, he didn't bring to the job the attributes, the positive attributes of a member of the Washington establishment and a Washington insider, which is that kind of experience, that breadth of experience and relationships that you might have expected from someone who had more extensive government experience.
So he was regarded sort of as the establishment Republican presence in the White House, though. Are there any of those left at the White House these days?
Well, maybe Vice President Pence would be the best kind of remaining example. I mean, the Vice President's example of a couple of things. He's a movement conservative, and he's also, you know, in some ways a more traditional conservative, and certainly he spent a lot of time in Washington and a member of the political establishment, both as a governor and as a member of Congress. But no, the ranks have thinned. We've seen so many departures, and so many of them kind of represent either the Republican National Party or something closer to an idea of a Washington insider. So now we have these military figures, and you have the kind of the Trumpists, the people that came out of the Trump campaign and signed on with Trump early on. And even as we've seen from Attorney General Jeff Sessions, that even some of those folks are in trouble. So you can't really overstate the degree of turmoil, obviously, that we've seen from this White House. And even though we now have a former Marine general or a retired Marine general as a chief of staff, and who may exercise maybe a tougher chief of staff certainly than Reince Priebus, given who the president is, you know, it may not be realistic to expect a dramatic change in the White House.
Any sense of what's next for Reince Priebus at this point?
Well, he could decide to make a lot of money. He's certainly not burning any bridges in the White House. He's, you know, I think most people think that it's been a pretty discouraging experience for him. He was treated pretty badly in some respects, but walking away from it, he kept repeating and restating his sort of loyalty to the Trump White House. That may be one signal. He could run for office. I mean, obviously there's a Senate race in Wisconsin in 2018. And he has run for office before. That's been a past ambition of his. He may have decided the window is closed on that, but we just don't know yet.
Yeah. And finally, on a related topic, there's some signs that, especially in the Senate, Republicans are now inclined to, at least to some extent, go their own way from the Trump administration, particularly on health care. Trump was tweeting, you need to get back to that. Let's keep going on repealing Obamacare. And the Senate seems to be saying, maybe not. What's going on there?
Yeah, and obviously the fundamental problem, the underlying problem, is that the Republicans don't have a consensus on health care, and they have shown their inability to put a plan together that even their own caucus can support. But beyond that, you know, they have a marginal advantage in a small, very thin majority in the Senate. And a lot of the things that Trump wants to do and is talking about doing, the support is limited. I mean, we've just seen now a new immigration plan to cut back on legal immigration. That doesn't appear to have the votes to pass the Senate. Not every Republican senator out there is going to get behind that. Obviously, there's going to be an effort in the Senate to kind of stabilize the healthcare marketplaces, which the president may or may not support. There's bad relations over the president's handling of Jeff Sessions, the attorney general, a former Republican senator. You go down the list of issues, Russia. There's a long list of issues where there is some daylight between President Trump and some varying degree of senators, whether it's a handful of senators or whether it's something larger than a handful.